Reactor engaged. Faction locked. All go.
Well, hello everybody. I hope you're doing well today. I know I've chosen a strange day to stream. I don't think I often stream on Wednesdays, but something caught my attention, so I figured I might as well do something about it. Did you hear that there's going to be a Zoid Shield Liger that transforms into Optimus Prime? Well, technically no. It doesn't transform into Optimus. It's done by the Diaclone subline under Takara. So it's not actually Transformer related. Actually. Well, I hope you've all been well. And if you're wondering how Lou was able to do that, it's unironically because they're a member. So if anybody wants access to the little emotes, little emojis, that's how you do it. You have to become a member. And I'm grateful to those who are, because being a member is kind of neat. And for some reason, the stream on the screen is like a minute behind. So, yeah, gonna be wild. My thoughts on the Transformers Godzilla: lazy, and I don't like it. Just lazy, and I don't like it. Good to see Colonel Gasmask, Venkman, and of course Cat the Awesome, who isn't around enough. Gelsey Bell, of course, or Belsey Gell. So, what are we doing today? Well, Transformers X Macross 7. I guess we'll find out, won't we? There's actually a Macross figure I want to review. I just need to get a certain thing because I'm anal about that, and I will not do a review unless I have everything I think I need for it, which is why I'm behind on everything. The Sonic trailer was neat. But some background here on all this. So, there's an individual named A.S.K. Air, who I guess covers cartoons. He seems to really focus on Ben 10, which is fine. Everybody has their hyper focuses, I suppose. And he did a video called Modern Cartoon Reboots Are Unfaithful Trash. Now, I've talked about reboots on this channel before. I've talked about my own personal opinions about these things. But it's very difficult to be in this space talking about specifically reboots or older cartoons because there's a lot of baggage, not coming from inherently our community itself, but coming from interlopers, coming from culture war weirdos. For example, when Thundercats Roar was announced, I promise you 99% of the channels that were talking about it don't actually care a lick about Thundercats. They haven't thought about it since the 80s or the 90s or 2011 reboot. They didn't actually care. They just wanted something to gripe about, and they wanted to make it some weird culture war nonsense. And unfortunately, because of things like that, it can make it difficult to talk about these things without somebody assuming that you're on that level. You can criticize reboots, you can criticize cartoons without being a culture war weirdo. And that's what I try to do here. Unfortunately, I also have seen that this guy has been getting lambasted from like the majority of cartoon Twitter and cartoon YouTube. And I want to be very clear here. Cartoon Twitter and cartoon YouTube does, in general, have a problem with proper priorities. So I've seen a few videos on this that have been constructive, because you can do a video that's constructive about this, and I'm hoping that's what we're going to do here. We're going to talk constructively about this. But some of them are just like vitriol and anger, because unfortunately the way he talks about it is very foolish, and he's not very good at defending what he says or giving proper evidence to claims. So what we're going to do here, and I don't think we're going to be here too long because, you know, it's only like a 7-minute video, is we're going to go through it and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to not be toxic towards this guy. I'm not going to attack him on a personal level. And we'll see where we go there. So let's go ahead and see what Air has to say.
So the other day I had an epiphany. I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone as one does, and I came across this monstrosity, The Fairly Odd Parents Reboot, and it was just as bad as I expected it to be.
Look how they mess with my boy.
Okay, so I've seen a little bit from The Fairly Odd Parents Reboot, and I I don't understand why people would have issue with it. It's not like they call it a reboot. It's not. It's actually a continuation. What's the problem? I don't understand. I've never seen any kickback about it. So there's some continuity issues apparently, but it's just very strange.
Mindless drivel plot lines, flashy art style, and an overt unfaithfulness to the source material.
Okay, so mindless drivel plot lines. The original Fairly Odd Parents, I'm not going to say is always the most poignant of cartoons. There's plenty of mindless dribble in the original Fairly Odd Parents, and not faithful to the original. We'll get onto that in a little bit here because I do have something to say about that as a general talking point. It can be defended, just I don't think in the case of this cartoon.
I realize, these phenomena are not unique to the Fairly Odd Parents. These symptoms carry on to many remakes and reboots that have sprouted from Hollywood in the last few years, whether it's animated or live action, movie or TV show. And if this were just a one-off thing in media, I probably wouldn't be making this video. But this is a repeated cancer that is spreading to more and more properties, and is only destructive in nature. And so I gotta take the mantle and expose just what makes these properties so inherently bad. Let's go.
Well, the thing is, you can't really say it's inherently bad. Transformers and Ninja Turtles have reinvented themselves multiple times throughout the decades. It doesn't mean they're inherently bad. Thank you, Fart Kid Leo, okay, for the $1 super chat. Interesting name. And your first one, thank you.
It was
Cartoon reboots are complete garbage. Well, I mean, I hope he has more than just one example.
originally the Fairly Odd Parents trash reboot #1 that inspired me to make this video, but now they went and made another one.
Okay, well, the first one was panned for several different reasons. I haven't seen any reason why the second one has been. I hope he brings up some actual points here.
When it's animated, that's where I draw the line. I'm old enough to remember back in Yale 2016 when everyone was trashing the new reboot at the time, Teen Titans Go. Then it was the Powerpuff Girls, Ben 10 reboot, Rise of TMNT, the list goes on.
Out of all of them, like, Rise was actually good? How do I put this? Not all reboots are exactly the same. Not all continuations are exactly the same. Trying to lump them all together, I think, is ignorant, to be honest with you.
No one really respects reboots as an inherent property, especially in the manner that they're handled in our modern era. It's almost a safe opinion these days to say, ooh, Hollywood unoriginal, Hollywood bad. But when you take a deeper look at it, you realize it's not just about the unoriginality. These Disney reboots do more than just rip off the original for monetary gain. No, no, no. They actively disrespect.
Okay, so I had to bring this up. Rip off the original for monetary gain. Literally nothing on this screen here. The initial animated films they're based on, they weren't original either. They were... Here's the hot take. While I do love the early Disney work, Walt Disney made his fortune on fan fiction. That's just the truth of the matter. He took classic stories, changed them, and animated them. It's fan fiction. He made his money on fan fiction. That's not inherently bad. I want to be clear about that. But just, you have to recognize some of these things do transform in time.
The original for monetary gain. No, no, no. They actively disrespect the source material while they do it.
Okay. The thing is, you can't just say they do X while not elaborating or giving better information about it, because he says, well, it disrespects and it just shows this. So here's where I'll say I believe that the live action disrespects the initial animated one, outside of the fact that personally I think these stories should be animated in general. I think not having little people in a live action reboot or retelling, I think that shuts them out of jobs they rightfully should have, and I think that can be disrespectful. But that's just how corporations do. They do the cheapest possible option.
They have to warp the brand to their liking.
Okay. What's warped? Is it just because she's black? Because I don't think that's inherently a warping. Little Mermaid, like the actual tail, she explodes into foam because she can't go to heaven because she's not human. So the problem is, and I'm trying to give him good faith. I'm trying to be positive here about him. if you just give 2 images of black actresses and saying that it's warped or disrespecting, people are going to perceive that a very specific way. All right? So that's the problem.
Whether it's for monetary, social, or storytelling purposes, if you really want to give them that credit. This Teen Titans Go syndrome has only gotten worse nowadays, because instead of just telling unfunny stories, modern reboots, especially in the animated realm, aim to purposely disrespect the original vision.
Okay. Purposefully disrespect the original vision. There are times they have done that. Roar did that. Why can I say Roar did that? Because the problem we're having with his claims here is he's not providing evidence that shows, like, the intent. I have screen caps, Trumbull videos about people on Roar disrespecting the original cartoon, talking trash about it. The original Thundercats cartoon was supposed to be a pro-social values cartoon that entertains and educates kids. All right? So I can say it disrespects the original intent of the original property, because these are from Litter Star's own mouth. He can't really say that about some of these things because some of these creators have not said a lick about that. In fact, if I recall correctly, Butch Hartman, say what you will about him as a person, he was pretty excited and positive about the new Fairly Odd Parents cartoon and talked about how he liked it. So you can't say, well, you're disrespecting the original creator if the original creator's on board. You're just as much a bigot as Map is. No, I'm not going around like... I'm literally doing the opposite of what Miss Anthroponi says, so I don't really know what you're on about, but it is what it is.
Starting off with the fact that the original creators don't want this kind of stuff, almost ever. We've all heard of how Steven Hillenburg never really wanted a reboot of SpongeBob.
There's more context to that, and I really wish this guy would have gone into detail about it, would have actually looked into it instead of just basing it on this one tweet. Paul Tibbett, I know he's in the field, but this is also just his opinion. This isn't something that he's basing on, like, a quote or a recorded thing or anything. It's just very strange.
But ever since his late passing, Nick has capitalized on 2 already, with both thankfully pulling in little to no ratings.
Okay, I want to be very blunt here, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in saying this. Even if Hillenburg was still alive, Nick would do it. You want to know why Nick would do it? Because Nick's a corporation, and if they have something that makes money, they're going to want to make more of that, so it makes more money. That's just how corporations work, regardless of if you consider them to be ethical or not. So, yeah.
When a reboot is properly won by the creators, it usually does quite well, and actually delivers true to the vision. But when...
Okay, so let me go ahead and go back on this, because I actually need to look up something real quick here. Okay, so one moment. I wish I wouldn't do that. I really should have looked this up before stream, but I am not a smart person. So to New York. Release date. I don't know why I just did that to Paralympics. That's weird. What issue number was that? Playing fast and loose here, guys. Fast and loose. Come on. Enough with the ads. Okay, so Ninja Turtles came out in 1984, right? So, question. How many issues do you think they had out by 1987? Take a guess. Take a guess. Because remember, or 1989 rather. How many do you think you had out by 1989? Because, keep in mind, the cartoon came out in 1987, which is why I said 87. But take a guess how many issues. All right, so we have 12, 23, 100, 200. Right, and at first I said 84 to 87, but it's actually 89. 420, haha, funny number. 250. All right, so I am guessing what you guys have been doing. Let's see here. Is you guys have essentially been taking, 12 issues for 4 years, yada, yada, yada. So here's the thing. 2 years after the original cartoon in 87 came out, they were at issue 19. They are just starting the Return to New York storyline. So, I'm not going to argue that Peter Laird being specifically involved in the creation of the 2003 Turtles wasn't a good thing. I'm not going to ever argue that. It's really good because he's involved. But by the time the 87 cartoon came out, there were very few issues of the original comic. So in a lot of ways, they're both essentially the original vision of the creators. So it's an odd argument to make. Ashley, when you actually have a real statement to make instead of just random nonsense, let me know.
Well, it actually delivers true to the vision. But when it doesn't, it's just a floundering...
Also, the 2003 cartoon, you can't really say it's 100% true to the vision because of the lack of violence in it and lack of death, in the same level as the original comic.
Attempt to show it was good and unique and cash in on someone else's creation. Let's give it bright, saturated animation to the point where kids get a corneal ulcer.
I mean, bright, saturated colors? Because animation's about movement, it's not about colors.
Why not? Kids like colors, right? I feel like everything I'm saying only relates to reboots post-2010.
No, but at the same time, what are you talking about? And I'll go ahead and just put a little pin on this. Trying to use Rise as a talking point for any of these things is really goofy.
Because prior to that, most reiterations weren't like this. Most were better than the original.
Batman Beyond isn't a reiteration, it's a continuation.
And actually kept gritty tones with cool brooding art styles.
Brooding art styles? What is a brooding art style exactly? I'm curious about that.
Now it's just a rainbow contest to see which show is brighter than the rest. Maybe that...
Okay.
I'll keep the kiddies in their seats a little longer. Let's make all the characters flanderized and dumb while we're at it. It's connect to dumb people more, right?
You know, to children, comedy tends to hit better. Like, you can't really even argue that, I think.
Also gives us a cheap way of actually creating humor. Stupid people are funny.
Okay, so here's the thing. It can be more difficult to write action more than humor in some cases, but it's also really hard to be funny. It's also really hard to be funny while writing for other characters and keeping them in character. Acting like it's inherently cheaper, I think, is dishonest. Maybe not intentionally dishonest, but I think the framing has a lot that leaves to be desired.
Modern reboots just go back to square one while ignoring all the story arcs that preceded them.
Well, yeah, that's why they're reboots, dude. That's literally why they're reboots.
Cheap-looking animation style and much shallower characters.
Okay. One problem when it comes to cartoon YouTube is a lot of them don't actually understand animation. They don't know what cheaper animation style actually means. And if you sit there and you try to get them to break it down, they won't know, other than they think bright colors inherently means cheaper, and it doesn't always.
Expect folks to be all on board and excited when they announce one. Don't forget to force memes and trends, disgusting imagery, and weird detailed faces.
the weird detail faces dates back to, well, a lot of early cartoons, really. Like, I'm pretty sure some original Bugs Bunny did it, too. As far as, animation memes and whatnot, yeah, that's a bit of an irritation, but it's also not as common as you probably think it is.
We'll often dish the grand arcs and storylines for a slice-of-life episodic show, bereft of any substance or long-term stakes.
If you do 100% at 100% of the time, you're not just going to burn out your audience, you're also going to burn out the people behind the show. Rise having episodes where they are literally just acting like teenagers and Splinter drops them off at the woods. Number one, it's really fun. Number two, it actually points out more that they're modern teenagers. And number three, having quote-unquote filler occasionally doesn't somehow ruin the flow of an episode or the flow of a show. So here's where I'm going to actually defend something else that people tend to revile in terms of Ninja Turtles. So in the 2003 cartoon, because of some executive meddling, we wound up getting the season of Fast Forward before we got the Ninja Tribunal season, right? And Fast Forward was much brighter. The art style was simplified. Actually, no, that came out in Back of the Sewers. They simplified it because it's a 2007 movie. I apologize. But it wasn't as intense. It wasn't as dark. It was a lot looser and a lot more, well, fun in terms of like what they were doing as opposed to doing like super heavy storylines. But the problem is because they aired it the way they did, I feel it gave people a negative impression of that season. Because when you watch it in chronological order, if you watch the 2003 Ninja Turtles in chronological order from Ninja Tribunal to Fast Forward, it is a much needed detox. It is a much needed like decompression from all the heavy, dark storytelling. Because the previous season before Fast Forward, chronologically, you're dealing with an undead demon Shredder taking over the world. Like, good Lord, you need to be able to calm down after that for a little bit. So a goofy trip to the future where the stakes are much lower and they're having fun it makes sense, right? It's like taking a vacation after a really stressful year at work. But, like, complaining about occasional filler episodes, I think is just goofy. Especially considering the fact that Rise absolutely pushed on to more linear storytelling, even during all this.
And look, I've made a whole different video explaining how being more mature or focused on story doesn't necessarily make a show better. That video gives a lot more nuance than I'm frankly giving here, but
maybe we'll check that out. We'll see what you guys have to think.
listen, part of a reboot is a fan service that you never really have to deliver to the original fans of the old property. You can't just say you're delivering something new.
Wait, let me go re-listen to that. That sounded really weird.
A lot more nuance than I'm frankly giving here, but listen, part of a reboot is a fan service that you never really have to deliver to the original fans of the old property. You can't just
I'm not really understanding what he's saying there, but okay.
say you're delivering something new for the current generation while abandoning the people who made your franchise what it is by watching all those years ago. Don't ruin our childhoods for your own creative laziness.
Okay, so a couple of things here. Firstly, I understand what he's getting at, because when you have a property that has been dead in the water in terms of no new cartoons or media or not, it is the fans that keep the interest alive. It's also the fans that corporations look at to see, well, can we make a new one? Would people want it? Believe it or not, they do that. So I do think people use the word owe, that, these corporations don't owe you anything, but they kind of do. In the sense of, if you want to have viewer retention, if you want these old fans to go back or introduce newer fans to it, you kind of have to recognize that. But I have to address a comment, and I've had people try to throw this at me saying that I've said this before, which I never have. A new property cannot ruin your childhood. Parental abuse ruins childhoods. A new version of a cartoon you enjoyed when you were younger cannot ruin your childhood. It cannot take it away. It can distort public perception. It can make people devalue the original by how it's written, sure, but it can't ruin your childhood. I find that even as a tongue-in-cheek jab, I find that to be a really dumb point to try to make, frankly.
It just makes you ask, why? Not to mention how they unnecessarily have to, all of a sudden, change everything about the show.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers now hates Lunatics Unleashed. Lunatics Unleashed was a very strange time in Warner Brothers animation. That entire decade, honestly, was. Very experimental, but not very good, right? So, yeah.
I mean, no one wants to talk about it, but
Okay, so let's talk about this, because part of the problem, again, is the reason why people keep saying this guy is being racist or whatnot is because he keeps making the comparison of black characters. Now, I do find it strange that there seems to be, which I haven't taken a wide look at it because, well, to be honest, a lot of this is live action and I don't care. There does seem to be a lot of quote-unquote replacing people who are redheads with black people, but as long as the character works, I don't care, and I don't think anybody else should, frankly.
Current bandwagon is the whole race swapping thing they all have to do with animated characters. April O'Neil, Timmy Turner, Velma, etc.
Okay. The new character in Fairly Odd Parents is not Timmy Turner. Her name is not Timmy. She's nothing like Timmy. Timmy's kind of a jerk. Timmy has gone out of his way multiple times to make people miserable because he's mad at them. He has made extremely bad decisions constantly. He doesn't think anything through. This new kid, this new girl, she seems like a lot of fun. She seems to be a real sweetheart. But I actually did an entire video on that meme Empress. She was in the original comics. But like, I don't care if they make April black because it's not something that's like inherent to her as a person. Well, he's welcome to do his video on that. It's not this, though. So this isn't the same thing, my dude. It's not.
Then there's the whole voice actress thing. Remember when Hank Azaria was shamelessly ousted from playing Apu in The Simpsons because
He wasn't shamelessly ousted. He chose to not continue to voice the character.
because he wasn't the race of the character? Because I do. It's almost like actors are supposed to portray things that they're not.
Within reason, yeah. But here's the thing. Let's say you have two people, one for Apu specifically, one that is Indian, from India, and another that is a white guy. Which do you think you're honestly going to get the better portrayal of an Indian guy with? I'm sorry, but the answer is going to be the Indian guy. Also because the Indian guy doesn't have to make a voice. He wasn't shamelessly outed. They got criticism and they made a decision. It's fine.
Here's another shocker. This guy is actually not an anthropomorphic sponge.
Comparing it to something that is not real as opposed to a real ethnicity is not a very smart comparison.
I mean, it's not just Azaria. This happened to Mike Henry, too.
Yeah, and here's the thing. They did replace him with a black voice actor. If you weren't told that, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference because a new voice actor is really good at Cleveland Brown. He is. So it's a dumb point of comparison. It's not like these people have been removed from the industry and can no longer do work. They still make a lot of money, a lot more than both of us make.
For playing Cleveland Brown. Allison Brie literally apologized for playing Diane from BoJack because the character was Vietnamese.
Okay, that's a casting issue. That's not her fault.
Oh, so if a Vietnamese person...
Actually, let's go back and reread that because I didn't read it. Allison Brie regrets voicing Vietnamese American character on BoJack Horseman. Allison Brie posted on Instagram Friday expressing regret over voicing the character Diane Nguyen, a Vietnamese American writer on Netflix BoJack Horseman. Brie says, "We missed a great opportunity to represent the Vietnamese American community accurately and respectfully." Okay, that's nothing inherently wrong with that statement.
The character was Vietnamese. Oh, so if a Vietnamese person has to voice that character and she feels so sorry about it, will she donate all the money she made on that show?
This is a foolish thing to say, not only because you can express regret about a previous job, but that's also her net worth. Somebody's net worth isn't the same as the money they make. This is so doggone goofy.
To Vietnamese charities? Or no, is it just a bunch of false outrage for a non-issue no one genuinely cares about?
It's not outrage. She gave an opinion. As far as nobody cares about, I mean, plenty of people apparently do. You do. Kind of a goofy point to make, my dude.
When everything is racial, that's the only thing I can see when watching. I never saw Blade as a black character.
I'm in pain, but I will continue and then I will make my point.
For Cyborg or Gerald or Static Shock, a lot of my favorite...
You never saw those characters as black. Okay. While every human being bleeds red, and we all have some very basic essential desires, sometimes a character's background is reliant on the cultural background of a specific ethnicity or cultural upbringing. You cannot have Blade as he is without him being black. The same with Cyborg. And certainly Gerald. And absolutely Static. Static came from the Wildstorm comics, which were black creators. That's the entire point, my dude. How did you never see him? You can try to make the, what's the word? I don't see color argument, but that in and of itself has its own problems.
For characters are people of various ethnicities and racial tones. The black female Timmy Turner is clearly just a cheap attempt to reboot this property without any other significant pitches for change.
I mean, other than the storytelling, the way they do the animation, how they have the characters voiced. I'm sorry, but the new Fairly Odd Parents is quite a bit different from the original cartoon.
And for the diversity folks, there must be a point where this hurts the cause more than it helps it.
What do you mean the diversity folks? Who are you talking about? And are they in the room with us?
This video isn't just about the new race swapping phenomenon, but it's an extremely prevalent symptom of a larger issue, which ties into the lack of respect for staying faithful to the original property. Maybe Butch Hartman wants Timmy to be race and gender swapped, which is why he has absolutely no direct involvement in the creative department of the project.
He's a director on it. Milestone, you're right, Vickman. I'm sorry. Milestone, not Wildstorm. I get them mixed up sometimes. Just, if the race of a character shouldn't matter, why does it always matter to the wrong people? If the race of a character is inconsequential, then why don't they judge the character as the character without bringing up the race or to change their ends? Okay.
I find that unlikely. It's absolutely insulting to ruin a person's original vision of a character just because people want to see themselves on screen. These people are too uncreative to create their own original stories, so they need to ruin existing stuff to be able to call themselves inclusive and hip with the times.
Can I get a citation on any of that? Because that's an assumption, and you've got to do better at making your point using actual data here. And uncreative people, like, creativity isn't... Creativity is subjective, my dude. As much as that may sound goofy, it really is. The new Fairly Odd Parents seems to be pretty creative in different directions, and that's okay.
This absolutely also hinders the story and episode quality, as the main selling point here is the obvious element that's right in front of us, but no one's allowed to acknowledge it for some reason.
The selling point is new Fairly Odd Parents series, different character. This is set in the future. Timmy is an adult now. That's the selling point. Is it is a continuation. Nick and nobody else looked and said, "Ha! Black child." Thank you, Danny, for the $10 super chat. Sometimes I look back and think about the people I've lost along the way. Maybe my career as a tour guide was a bad choice. True. So doggone goofy. This boy's goofy. I'm not even angry at him. He's just goofy.
I mean, watch a single episode of Rise, A New Wish, Patrick Star, or Camp Coral, and you'll see that. Even those shows are unfaithful to the source material. It's not...
You don't want to have a conversation with somebody my age about faithfulness to the Ninja Turtle source material. I'm sorry, but you're not. And Camp Coral, SpongeBob, like... the thing is, you're also making arguments. He's also making arguments in different directions. Like, he says unfaithful to the source material, but then he brings up the race of the character. But then goes back to unfaithful to the source material, but he won't tell you how it's unfaithful, which is part of the problem. He can't actually tell you what his argument really is.
Not just about the race swapping issue. Being unfaithful has different forms, and the reason I focus on that issue is because it's the most prevalent at this point in time.
Using Ren and Stimpy adult party cartoon there that was directly involved by John Kay, and we all know what he is the worst possible thing to use in that scenario. Because it's literally the same guy. Vinkman, people forget that Will Smith's character from Men in Black was originally a blonde dude in the comics. I don't think I've heard anyone make a fuss about that. That was a comic? I didn't even know that.
Maybe 10 years ago, the discussion was about a completely different form of unfaithfulness. Still, some shows suffer from that.
Okay, let me... Here's where I upset some of the Teen Titans cartoon fans. I am old enough to remember when people were upset on message boards because the Teen Titans cartoon wasn't faithful to the comic book source material. What your generation thinks is the source material is not the source material, 9 times out of 10.
Mentioned SpongeBob, there are plenty of other examples. I just despise seeing a person's work be disrespected when they likely sacrificed like hell to turn into a reality. And some studio exec can just demand a reboot of it for ratings and completely change the original character into something just to appeal to the bandwagon.
Which is one reason why I think, corporate animation probably will need to die a very quick death.
In live action, you could claim that the actor's audition and skill level determine who gets the role, and that would be fair, but it's totally different with an animated character made of pixels.
How's it going, Kickers? Boy, I haven't seen you in a while. Most fiction that actually survives is because it changes and evolves over time. Look at ancient Greek and Roman myths. They changed during the era they were told. And again, Disney Hercules. Alright, so let's go back because I saw Kickers.
Gets the role, and that would be fair, but it's totally different with an animated character made of pixels, although even that's under question.
Well, no, it's not, because you still want to make sure the people on it are skilled in their different individual crafts. You're going to want to have animators that are decent. You're going to want to have writers that are decent, and hopefully they have a legacy there that they can point to.
These days, when the new Snow White or Ariel can't even sing, but are preferred over tons of other actors.
Okay. You know how I talk sometimes that we all get stuck in our own decades? A lot of people will claim I'm stuck in the 80s and I go no further, which also isn't true. Somebody want to explain to this guy that 9 times out of 10, the actors or actresses in Disney films had different people for different aspects. So there are times, like, I'll give you an example. Scar, Jeremy Irons. Did you know he didn't sing the entirety of Be Prepared? He had to sub in for Jim Cummings and nobody knew. There's a lot of times that an actor, voice actor, has to have somebody else do the singing role because they can't. So that's the dumbest comparison you can make here, man. Come on. Lio, I was one of those upset that Titans were different. I know it's silly, but I was angry that the voice actor convinced them to make Beast Boy a vegan because the voice actor was vegan. Really? I could have sworn that was a or a comic thing. But yeah. Well, congratulations on getting married.
I don't know. Am I crazy? I feel like I'm living in the Emperor's New Clothes. People just disagree with this because it's the right thing to say or whatever, but most people would probably agree with these common sense points deep down.
Well, you haven't made any common sense points. You've made a bunch of assumptions with no data to back it up, and that's part of the problem. You can't just make blanket statements without having some source to point to. That's the problem in the entire video. Well, it's disrespecting the initial desire, it's disrespecting the legacy, but I won't tell you how it is. I won't give you data about what the actual producers and creators thought. I'm just going to say it did because it doesn't jive with what I would want to see in this series.
When a character is good, race shouldn't matter, nor should the new spin you put on the character,
And if the character is bad, it also shouldn't matter. That goes both ways, my dude.
It's a gimmicky change in the age, the gender, the design more broadly, or their persona and attitude in a larger sense. Even things like the Lion King remake piss me off because they clearly capitalized on this and it worked by turning one of the greatest animated films in the 90s into a National Geographic documentary with the occasional reminder that it is, in fact, a Lion King reboot. When they're more faithful to the source material like Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast, it doesn't bother me as much. But I don't think Rob Minkoff
So when it completely changes medium, for the most part, because we all know half of these live action movies are CGI. When it changes medium to that severe degree, that doesn't bother you. That isn't a change from the original vision, the original idea, the original concepts. But a race swap is. Quote unquote race swap. Huh. I really hope this guy learns from this.
And Roger Allers crafted the 94 masterpiece with their own hands, just to expect it to get a live-action CG remake when it's pretty much 100% animation, or portraying real animals for some reason. God, it's all so stupid. Anyway, can't wait to see a Static Shocker Spawn movie, and while they're at it, it wouldn't hurt to race swap one more movie, would it?
Brother, how? How do you look at this and not understand why people might think you have a race issue, my dude? Come on. Come on.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe, and follow me on all the socials to keep up with my tomfoolery. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you beautiful ladies and jellyfish in the next one.
This dude is getting dogged everywhere because of this garbage video. Now, as a content creator, you're not always going to make good videos. You're not always going to be able to properly express your thoughts. Video unavailable. That's weird. But at the same time, you have to be able to articulate yourself and your thoughts and your points a lot better than that. Because it seems to me, based on the little look I did on his channel, the dude's really big on stuff like Ben 10 and whatnot. So maybe he could apply the argumentation on something he knows a lot more about and see how that goes. But instead, he just goes into this. And who has messaged me? How dare you? So I'll go ahead and tell you who just messaged me. So you guys remember the guy I streamed about last time, the toy enhancer, right? Well, the toy enhancer has decided to follow the same wheel that everybody else I've ever had to deal with in one way or another does. So I call them out on something, they get really mad, and then they start accusing me of being a child predator. And that's what he's been doing on people's videos. And he just DM'd me after I told him he's an idiot for believing that. He's like, that's a pretty awful accusation. Wonder why people say that. I've gotten several private messages and screenshots from the past already. It's only been one day I've known of this. So I'm sure he'll do some goofy video making that claim, because he always does. Thank you, Gelsey Bell, or Belsey Gel, for the $5 super chat. Out of curiosity, Lyle, what are some of your favorite remakes, reboots, etc., if any? Movies, TV shows, cartoons, etc. Well, I did like the 2003, 2012, and Rise Turtles. I haven't been able to see Mutant Mayhem Turtles yet, or Tales of the TMNT as they're called. Shoot, what else have I liked? So far, I like the Biker Mice from Mars comic. There's some anime that reboots are pretty good too, so, you know. Fullmetal Alchemist was good. Apparently they're doing a reboot of One Piece when it's not even over yet. I don't know. A lot of Godzilla films are reboots of previous films, and those have been good, so it's really goofy. Alright, so who wants to see his video about adult animation and mature writing? Type 1 in the chat if we want to go over that real quick. The ones have it. So let's see if I can find it. I don't need the channel intro. Come on, dude. Don't just show me like playlists. Just give me your videos. Let's see here. Problem solvers. No, thank you. Where is the video? Where'd you put it? How long ago was it? Did I miss it already? Here, let's just do a search. 3 years ago, that's why.
How you doing, my lovely?
Thank you, Platinum Apex, for the $5 super chat. Did this guy fall into a coma in 2016 and wake up thinking nothing in media opinions have changed? Yes, probably. Probably. Maybe he'll own the libs with facts and logic. All right, so this is called Mature Cartoons Aren't Always Better. So let's find out. Let's find out together. God help me. I'm in pain. Constant pain. I am in Spain without the S.
Please.
Oh, thank you, Kicker's Boy, for the $5 super chat. On the one hand, glad we're getting a theatrical animated Transformer film. On the other hand, celebrity voices. Why can't we have pro voice actors? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Here's what this guy's saying. You don't even show your face and use a fake name. Sounds like a possible sex offender. Idiot. All right, so let's get into this. Shalom. Huh? Didn't know he was Jewish. Okay.
I usually say shalom, but this isn't really one of my usual scripted videos. You know what? Screw it. Shalom, ladies and jellyfish. And today I'm going to be talking about an aspect of cartoons that most people automatically attribute to quality, and that's maturity.
Maturity, isn't that a novel approach?
Ben's got a girlfriend, Ben's got a girlfriend.
Take any two shows, try comparing them for quality, and the cartoon that's more mature typically gets a leg up on the other one. For example, Korra.
Depends on what you're aiming for, I suppose.
Sure, the story is dog crap in a lot of places, and the characters can be super boring, and half the seasons can be a major letdown, but hey, it's more mature, so of course it's comparable or even better than Avatar. Hey, Ben 10 Alien Force is
What's the metric of maturity being used here?
darker and more mature than the original Ben 10. I guess that means it's better because it panders to my desire to be an intellectual millennial, even though I'm a lowly Gen Z who's only experienced around Nickelodeon to freaking Game Shakers or Sanjay and Craig. Now don't get me wrong, both those examples
Who is this guy even talking about? Like, use names.
apply to me too. For instance, I think Korra Season 1 absolutely smashes the entirety of Avatar, and for a long time I thought Alien Force and Ultimate Alien were better than the OG Ben 10 just because they featured older characters and it took place at night all the time. But if you step back and look at it, maturity shouldn't really dictate the quality of a show. Or should it? The story of a cartoon should really be the #1 priority, so who cares if the show features a 12-year-old kid who makes fart jokes, or the alcoholic 17-year-old who constantly worries about her love life and has clinical depression and smokes a pack a day. Obviously, people like mature cartoons as they get older because they see themselves in those characters, and usually mature cartoons actually tell a richer story because there's more drama at stake. But that's not always.
Well, it depends on, again, the problem with anybody making these arguments is that they can't define what mature is. Right? So, well, they're mature cartoons. What do you mean by mature? Because I would not call Rick and Morty mature. Do-do-do. Sorry, just responding to things. Alright, so back to this.
Always the case. Like, yeah, obviously Teen Titans is better than Teen Titans Go, but it's not because of the maturity. It's because Teen Titans Go is a terrible cash grab show with cookie cutter stories, Flanders characters, and stupid comedy.
Which you, again, don't qualify. And better in that aspect is also subjective. Because, what do you mean by better? What he ultimately means by better is that he enjoys it more. That's literally it.
Because Teen Titans is better in just about every way, not counting how dark it can be. So maturity doesn't make a cartoon great, or make it terrible, so what does it make it? Well, it makes it deeper. And that sometimes comes with...
No, not inherently. What? Again, you have to define your terms before you go into any of this.
with advantages, such as shows like BoJack Horseman, or with its disadvantages, like adult party cartoon. Like seriously, name me one person who unironically prefers the adult party cartoon over the obviously much more childish and less mature Ren and Stimpy. Trying to be mature doesn't necessarily make a cartoon anything, but those are obvious comparisons. You take one terrible show and one decent show and pin them against each other like the maturity aspect makes an impact. So let's say two similar shows in terms of objective quality and compare them in maturity. So for example, SpongeBob and The Simpsons. Pretty similar in quality, both being long-running shows on major networks, with seasonal rot taking both shows downhill in a lot of ways. The only real difference is that The Simpsons can be a lot more mature in a few aspects. I personally think most people who...
What do you mean by mature? What does that mean in this context?
aren't super critical about animation like some of my IRL friends would say The Simpsons is better because SpongeBob is just for kids, even though SpongeBob and The Simpsons have arguably been equally influential in the animation world, and in both their peaks have been some of the greatest cartoons to ever be created. And clearly, they both work in their own respects, since they're also some of the longest running shows to ever come out. This is where the it's just for kids argument comes into play, as shows that have their priorities made with the intention of entertaining children get pushed aside for cartoons that try to challenge the very fabric of storytelling and use a lot more swear words and stuff like that. And I think that's a real shame, especially because pretty much all of animation was seen as a children's medium until some adult animation shows were made, as well as companies like Pixar realizing how powerful this medium of filmmaking can be.
No. And I'm sick of these younger people who have no respect or looking back at the past and make this claim. Well, it was animation was seen as made for kids. Mickey Mouse and Looney Tunes used to be things people would dress up and go to the theater to watch. They were theater level animations. It was never just for kids. All right, that's just something that people have been putting out in the past 30 years or so as a way to degrade animation. And instead of recognizing that argument's flawed from the beginning, you give it more emphasis by allowing them to continue making it and defending that argumentation.
And after that transition was made, a lot of hardcore animation fans will correct you for writing.
And for the record, it was not Pixar or whatnot that showed that you could tell more mature storytelling. Anyone did it. Disney's films were rated G for a reason. G means general. It means it should appeal to everyone. And if you want to go on the adult content makes for mature, Fritz the Cat's right there. As much as I hate it, Fritz the Cat's right there. And that predates anything you're talking about.
Spider-Man like this instead of like this, started telling the world that animation was no longer reserved 100% for kids shows, and more
It never was, and nobody ever said that.
more adult animation shows, as well as children's shows with adult humor, started sprouting all over the place.
Okay, let me go ahead and put it this way. Who here in the chat can tell me when Top Cat first aired? What time slot was it in? Do you think it was before the school day cartoon? Do you think it was a Saturday morning cartoon? When do you think it aired? Time slot wise. When do you think it aired? Top Cat. Hanna-Barbera's Top Cat. Namcause, K is my name, Smith the Crow, Nada all have it right. Prime time. Why? Because it was a animation for literally everyone. Same thing with the Flintstones and all these other things. Like, good God, these younger people have got to learn to research beyond the years they were alive. They have to. Otherwise, they make bad arguments like this.
And with more and more sprouting up, this is where this video's title comes into play. With more and more stuff, more and more garbage eventually made it to the top, and showed that just like terrible kids shows, mature shows can be just as bad, if not worse than shows that were made for 11-year-olds to watch after learning 6 times 7 in math class.
Bad in what way? Define what you mean. You're so nebulous about everything.
That's why I have a lot more respect and admiration for children's shows like SpongeBob or Hey Arnold, for taking the easy-to-consume children's format and on top of obviously telling a good story, peppering in adult humor and dark comedy to appeal to more people and keep those kids laughing as they continue to get older.
What do you mean by adult humor? What do you mean by dark comedy? Because if you're talking about mature themes and settings, Cosby Show, like with Fat Albert, did that decades before.
And the beauty is that, as they mature as people and learn more things, they laugh at different things. Like, for example, when you were a kid, you laughed at Squidward getting run over by this crowd, and as an adult, you laugh
Incorrect. I also laugh at that as an adult.
at the episode's pretty obvious political statement that's casually made fun of in the context of the episode.
Squidward picketing the Krusty Krab is not political. It's socioeconomic. Starting to sound like freaking Cobra Commander screaming. Do you not... That's not political. That's not political. But the Krusty Krab is unfair. Mr. Krab is in there, standing at the concession, plotting his oppression.
We'll saw the foundation of big business in half.
It's even worse that you don't know what communism is.
Oh, Batman the Animated Series is obviously better than Spider-Man the Animated Series.
They were different shows. Spider-Man the Animated Series tend to focus more on drama. So, whose arguments are these that he's spouting? Is this just straw manning?
Because it's darker and there are silhouettes and stuff, I think.
Seriously, why do people equate maturity with quality? Sure, one features more mature things like death and alcohol and drugs and swear words, but which one tells a better story? Don't even try to call me a hypocrite, by the way. I admit to also liking mature shows more for that reason alone, which is...
Okay, so now we finally have some basis for what he considers mature. What he considers mature isn't about the depth of writing. It isn't about the story therein. It's not about what characters deal with. It's about whether or not the humor is adult related. Or whether or not they're swear words. Which is not the same as mature.
part of the inspiration behind this video. I actually plan to compare Spider-Man 1994 and Batman the Animated Series in a future video, and I'll remember to keep the word maturity out of the script.
Please just don't do it.
By the way, I mentioned SpongeBob before. Compare that to literally any show.
At least not until you know more about how to structure things.
And even though it's probably less mature by many levels, I think it's comparable to a lot of things. BoJack Horseman covers the inner complexities of molecular anomalies of metaphors and literary devices, and
Literary devices do not have molecular anomalies. BoJack Horseman talks about the struggles and problems of a toxic individual who sometimes tries to be less toxic and sometimes gives into it. He's a very human-written character.
Ravioli, be more originally is still 10 times more memorable and legendary of a quote, and it
Okay, so it's more brain rot, therefore better? What?
probably took 10 times less brain power and writing talent to come up with.
No. Again, comedy does not inherently mean that it's easier to write.
Point is, you can say SpongeBob is better, or BoJack is better, or even frickin' Rocket Power is better, but maturity should not be a factor in that decision. So next time some boomer
It depends on what you're looking at.
comes up to you and says,
Korra's better than Avatar because it's darker and deeper and more mature, and it makes me feel all good inside because I can watch it with my parents without them thinking I'm a weirdo who watches Peppa Pig at 27 years old.
you tell him, no it's not, you're dumb, pick up a book and eat my vascular bundle. With that
I don't think it's them that needs to pick up a book. Also, what's a vascular bundle? Sounds gross.
said, I've been A.S.K. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you beautiful ladies and jellyfish next time. Shalom!
I would love to have just an actual conversation with this guy. Like, not a Senate type call, not a deconstruct call, but like I just want to pick his brain. Because there's literally so much of this that makes no sense. I need to know what his baseline is. I need to know what is it about this area of cartoon Twitter and YouTube that just has no understanding of literally anything. My soul hurts. My soul and my brain hurt. What am I running over? Oh, my belt. Makes sense. Well, at least he doesn't have an opinion on Thundercats, I guess. I think that he's got a lot of growing to do, and I hope that, because apparently he's been making these videos since he was a kid. I don't know personally. Like, I've never heard of this guy before this video came out. But I hope he actually takes a step back and learns how to make videos from, like, a learned example, because it doesn't take much to look into these things. And it can be, and the thing is, research on stuff like this is genuinely fun. You will learn so much about what makes animation like the thing it is in the modern day if you actually look back at how it formed and where it went. Like, people like to give Hanna-Barbera and Filmation grief, haha, stock animation, haha, shortcuts. They kept television animation alive. Like, for decades. For decades. And they need to be shown respect for that, because nobody else was doing it. Not until the Reagan administration deregulated things. To be fair, he just turned into an adult last year, if Wikipedia is correct. Okay, well, I hope he takes all this as a learning thing, because here's the thing, it cannot be easy, right? For him to be seeing probably content creators he looked up to dogging on him for this video. And I haven't seen all of them, so hopefully they're all constructive. Hopefully they're not cruel, but it can't be easy for him right now. So while I'm frustrated with his lack of knowledge, I hope he's okay. I hope he realizes that a bad video, even one that the community dogs on, does not make him inherently a bad person. And I think that if he does have like racial issues, that he tries to get that squared away so he doesn't internalize that morph that exists. People can change, and if that's a problem for him, I hope he does. And I hope that his content improves. And I hope that he does better research on the topics he talks about, frankly. I don't know. Now I'm just sad. And I really hope, and I know they're going to, but I really hope the cartoon community on social media doesn't just write him off as a terrible human being because he did one bad video on things they like. I really hope they don't. Yes, I've seen the Brazilian Miku stuff. I don't get it, but, you know, a lot of people enjoy it. I guess it's fine. Goodness. Well, that's it for now. I'm going to be having some more videos coming out this week, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. And hopefully you go and take a look at the toy reviews I've done, because they've been a lot of fun. A.S.K, if you see this and you want to chat, just, you know, hop in on Discord and we can talk sometime. I'd love to run you through some things and pick your brain on some things. But you guys take it easy. Do you approve of Shin Godzilla? In concept, yes. But I will catch you guys later, and I hope you all have a good evening.